And anything special for you last night, Justin? Late night?
Yeah, pretty late night. I just listened to the new Sea Space Cowboy record
Oh,
and
nice.
played some Mass Effect. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, yeah,
That's a classic game, man.
yeah, for sure. So thank you both of you for joining me and an honor doing this. Uh, So the new Lowlives record comes out May 31st. And that's gonna be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to listening to it because the EPs were really solid from a few years ago. But yeah, I'm really excited to check that out. And this is UMFM 101.5. My name is Fish. This is Suburban Home. We check out and showcase the best of alternative, hardcore, emo, and just like the the best of everything, really. So yeah, yeah. So yeah. Just one thing I do want to ask. You guys are based out of LA. Like the band is based out of LA, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Loosely.
We were based out of LA. We all lived in LA, and then when we started to do stuff, we all split in different directions. So I guess I'm the closest to LA now, and
Okay.
then Luke lives in Arizona. Steve used to live here also, but now he's moved to Washington State. And then Jackson, our guitar player, lives in Bakersfield. So man, we are all over the show right now.
Okay. So I wanted to ask that because I did want to ask a question like a bit later probably. I assumed one of you did live in the UK, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah,
um
both of us are originally from the UK. Like, I'm from Birmingham. I've
yeah,
been over in the States close to 24 years, and
nice.
Lee was from Isle of Wight, and you've been here 11 years, Lee?
we're like 11 years now in the
Yeah,
States.
this is home now. I mean, like we love going back to the UK, but this is where the roots have been planted down.
Yeah. I'll probably just ask the question now just like
Yeah, yeah.
while I have it. Um so I've actually had to, I guess, ask this question when I interviewed a band called Job for a Cowboy, who are like a deathcore band.
Yep.
Uh,
Yeah.
they're from like all over the place too. Like they have a member in Ireland, they have a member in LA. They have like they're kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
How do you guys like practice when you guys are in like completely different uh like states, cities, all that? Like how do you guys communicate on practicing rehearsals, all that kind of stuff? Just out of curiosity.
It's a fucking nightmare, to be honest. um, yeah, we just wherever the tour is going to be, we just get together and we just do a few days rehearsing. As long as we keep our own shit like good, we
Yeah,
just have to turn. We
everyone's
have to turn up dialed, kind of thing.
everyone's got to do their homework basically. So it's like, I think about older bands that I've been in, right, where you have a lockout, you all live in the same area, like fucking Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, you're at the lockout, chinning beers, rehearsing for 6 hours a night, and like any tour drops on your plate last minute, you're just straight out the gate ready to go. Definitely is not the case with this band. I mean, we're always ready to go, but wherever we're starting a tour, we'll usually plant down and do several days rehearsal. Like, so if we're going to Europe, we're in the UK several days before tour starts, doing rehearsals there. We're about to actually do some generic album rehearsals where we just make sure we're tight on everything on the new release that's not in preparation for a tour. But then equally, like I have a studio, I'm in my studio right now, and so I'm also able to kind of make like I have all the album stems. So if like people want to like rip along and practice guitar, like I can do them a mix with everything but the guitars, their guitar, and they can basically play along with the album version. So as long as everyone's keeping tight on their own, like when we drop in, we're usually pretty muscle memory, like getting on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's sweet. Um so I kind of want to talk about just the start of your careers. Like where did you guys start? And I know, Luke, you were in No Devotion for a bit.
Yeah.
Uh, how is it working with Jeff Rickley? Because he's one of my favorite musicians ever. Um, so yeah, like
Did you check out the new song they just put out?
yeah,
First they
it's
put
so
out? Yeah.
good.
Good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And just the transition from No Devotion to like going into and working Low Lives.
Yeah, so I mean, historically, I feel like drummers always end up in a shitload of bands, right? Like that you see in the memes, right? Like you
Yeah,
find a drummer that plays only in one band that doesn't play in 10 bands, right?
yeah,
Like I've never really been that guy. I was when I was at college, like I played in a few bands, like I was in a rotation, but sort of when I hit my early 20s, I was pretty much one band guy, and like I came over to the States in like I don't even remember the date now. I think it was 2002 or 3 or even 2001. It was somewhere in that window. I came over, I joined a punk band called Amen. Um, and then ever since then, I've just everything kept drawing me back to the States, hence why I planted roots down here, right? And then, then I ended up joining a Welsh band that was based basically in LA, with one member in the UK. And, you probably know about that band. And then obviously the way that that band broke up, kind of gave way to No Devotion, and during that breakup sort of thing, it was a really rough time for everybody. It was pretty grim circumstances, and we ended up just making music, right? And so once we made some tunes and that, and like it was kind of like a distraction, you know what I mean? Once we made a few tunes together, we kind of pieced ourselves back together, and that was sort of how No Devotion got formed. So, we kind of we already knew Jeff through our manager, and we already kind of had a relationship, and he sang on a few tunes, and it turned out wicked. But from me exiting that band, honestly, it kind of came from like my like holistic life situation, right? Like I'd gone from being somebody that played in small bands and making money from like shitty bar jobs or working in a scrapyard, right, to like making my money from being in a band full time and then moving to another country. And then obviously you start a new band, like No Devotion, right? It's not making money or anything like that. So like trying to figure out how to keep a roof over my head whilst in a foreign country when I'd never done it. Like I've done it like that in the UK, but not in the US. And so that was kind of difficult. I just met my now wife, like about 18 months prior, and she was pregnant with our first kid. And so like I was going through a whole load of changes, and to be honest with you, a little bit of anxiety and sort of mental breakdown. I hadn't really unpacked the stuff from the other band that broke up horrifically. I jumped straight into trying to do No Devotion, and so I was just in this place where like nothing was right for me at the time, and it was rough, man. And I remember the phone call me telling the boys, I remember telling them that I think I need to kind of bail, which is hard, right? Because I'm a pretty committed guy to things that I do. And that was just a rough conversation. So, it took a while for the dust to settle and me to reconnect and be cool with everyone. I think they were pretty irritated with me when I bailed, but I had to do what I had to do, and that brings me to here. I basically quit music. After No Devotion, I quit music. I got a real job. I worked for like a mindfulness and meditation company called Headspace for like 4 years. That company was just getting started, and that helped me a lot with my mental health actually as well. And then I started getting the itch again. I was kind of in a place where I was like, can I give up music? You know what I mean? Like it's part of my identity. I feel like, although I'd never wanted it to be my identity entirely, I felt like it was my identity, and a piece of me was missing. And my now kid that I got around was never going to see the real me. So I started having this kind of like, whoa, I need to find me again, right? And that started with sort of conversations with me and Leon, how Low Life started, which we talked to each other on Instagram, and a couple messages about some old whips. We were both into old BMWs, like, and we were talking about that. And I asked him about his band, which I knew in the UK they were pretty big. And yeah, man, they broke up, and he was kind of like, "I'm actually writing music. Let me send you some." And then that was it, man. That sparked this whole thing, and it just kind of it kind of took off from there, man. Like I just with Lee, we went to the pub, had pints, and it was like an immediate connection, man. There was just like no doubt in my mind that this is a guy that I want to make music with. So that was kind of how that whole transition went.
Nice. Lee, do you want to mention anything, like kind of any of your former bands and then the transition into kind of writing and all that for Lowlives?
Yeah, well, my old band, we were like quite a heavy band, and it was just like I've always been a grunge kid, and writing grungy music is the first thing. As soon as I pick up a guitar, that's what comes out, kind of thing. And I was basically just trying to shoehorn in that stuff into my metal band, and I was the writer of that band too. And it was just like, breakdowns, but I'm trying to do like Foo Fighters choruses, and it just wasn't really working. We went to go and do a record at Dave Grohl's place and tried to do everything analog and properly, and it just didn't work. And it's just, I kind of just had enough, man. It was more, it was that, like, as Luke was saying, it became like a business, and it wasn't fun to do anymore. I mean, we did good in England, but just everywhere else in the world was a struggle. And it was just like, I don't know how much longer we can do this for without making good, or being able to get by, because we couldn't have jobs, but we didn't make enough money touring. So it was kind of tough. So I quit doing that. And then I just did a bit of session work in LA for another band where I could just turn up, play guitar, and fuck off every day without any of the hassles of running a band. And then that got boring real fast. And then I started writing, like, I think Burn Forever and Bones. And then I sent those, like, when Luke was messaging, I was like, man, I wonder if he'd be into doing this. I sent him the songs. And he was like, this is wicked. We should get together and hang out. And then, after the pints and pub, everything worked out fine.
Can't really do any business unless it starts with pints at the pub.
Yeah. That's basically how we work as humans, I guess. We can't take the British out of us. So yeah, and then it kind of it started coming really fast. Me and Luke, we didn't envision it being like, oh, we need to get a band together and we need to tour as soon as possible. It wasn't like that. It was like, as he said just now, like scratching that creative itch, and like we should just write some songs together and hang out. And then every weekend, Luke was in Orange County. I would drive down to Orange County from LA, and it was just song after song. It just kept on coming, really easy, no stress whatsoever. And then it was like, shit, we maybe should turn this into something. And that's when Luke already knew Steve, and then that's how we got Steve involved. And then we went to record Burn Forever. We initially tried to start the band as a 3-piece. But then after recording that, it became pretty apparent that we needed that extra kind of guitar layer. So then Bo, who was producing Burn Forever, he was working with another band, and he had played the song to Jackson, who was in that band. And then he messaged me through Instagram, and I was like, oh, well, actually, we're kind of looking for a guitar player. I don't want to steal you from your band, but would you be into this? And then he came down to rehearse, and he turned up and knew everything perfect straight off the gate, like straight off the bat. It was super easy.
Bo's kind of like I feel like at this point is like a unspoken fifth member. I mean, he's like he produced all the first load of stuff and mixed it. He's mixed this album. He's that guy, man. He just knows the band so well. It's so easy to work. Are you familiar with Bo Bichelle?
Um,
He's a producer. He's also the guitarist in Sayasin, like writes all the Sayasin stuff.
oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Sick. Yeah, so that does answer like another question I had, which was like the background behind the project pretty much. So yeah, that's really cool. And also really cool that you worked with a Seosin member.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It
so
makes our guitar player very happy because he fucking loves Sayasin.
yeah, that's awesome.
Sayasin was Jackson's favorite band.
Nice. Was there like a different writing, recording or production process that you used during the recording of this album that you hadn't before, either on the other EPs or any of the other like records that you've ever made?
Go on, Lee.
Well, we've always pretty much been with Bo the whole time.
Yep.
And then we got hit up out the blue in the middle of the pandemic by this guy called Adrian Bushby, by his management. He was like, oh, he'd heard us on the radio and was like, oh man, I wonder what this band are doing. Like, are they going to do a record? And Adrian's produced, I mean, the dude's got like a couple of Grammys. He's done Foo Fighters and Muse and stuff. And we were like, is this like a joke email? What's going on here? So we were like, let's just fucking do it. Like, we'll just make it work. And at that point, we didn't have a label or anyone involved. So we were backing everything ourselves financially. And yeah, I think we were very itchy from being in the pandemic and lockdowns and stuff. We're like, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's go to England. Let's go and do a record. And it was kind of as the pandemic kind of lockdown kind of let up a little bit. And you just had to stay in a place. Was it like 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that? So
Yeah, 14
we ended up
days.
so we ended up just going to a studio in England, which is this famous studio called Chapel, which is where all like the old Roadrunner bands like Machine Head and Slipknot and Fear Factory and all that used to record. And it's like this converted church in the middle of Lincolnshire, and it's really pretty, but it's also like a residential studio, so we could just go there and that's all we had to focus on. Whereas before, when we've recorded with Bo or in previous bands and stuff, it's very, you go to a place, you record, and at the end of the day you go home or you go to a hotel or something like that. So this was really nice because we lived there too. So we just woke up, had breakfast, discussed what we were going to do for the day, worked all the way through till midnight, and then just repeated. So we did that for 13, 14 days. So it was a nice process because usually it's kind of me and Luke that kind of get most of the bits recorded first, and me and him write the stuff and demo it ourselves too. So it was quite nice this time to have Stephen Jackson involved and being around the whole creative process as well. So it was the best recording experience we've had ever, because it was amazing. It was a good time.
Yeah.
Also, the European Cup was on, so we were watching football every day, which was fantastic.
I think like budget permitting, we do records like that every time now, like fully immersive, right?
Yeah.
Because I think when we wrote the first stuff and did the first album, right, Bo lived so close to us that it was pretty easy just to, go home each night and then drive to the studio each day. So it was kind of like, it was kind of like going to work and doing stuff, and then we'd, finish at 7 and all right, I'll see you later, and so I think, for future albums, I think what works best as a formula for this band is like being away from like regular life patterns and being immersed in only focusing on that. You know what I mean? That definitely had a massive impact on the experience, the enjoyment, of making that album.
Totally.
But next time we'll do it. We'll take Bo somewhere.
Yeah, we're taking Bo somewhere. Bo actually mixed this record, hence why it sounds so banging. So
forget. A few days ago, you guys released the song "You Don't Care." I love that song, so good. Probably my favorite Lowlives song yet.
Nice.
You guys noted a Smashing Pumpkins influence on that one. Who are some other massive influences on the new record for your personal selves and just like for the band in general? And yeah.
You take it, man.
Oh, all right. Smash Pumpkins is my favorite band of all time. Lee knows that. And yeah, basically we would always jam Smashing Pumpkins. Like we'd be in a rehearsal room, right? And maybe there's kind of like someone's gone out to use the bathroom or gone to get a drink. Lee would always just start ripping like, usually a Smashing Pumpkins riff, but if not, some kind of grunge riff, Alice in Chains, whatever. And yeah, man, we would always just end up jamming Smashing Pumpkins. Anyway, fast forward to writing this, we're having a moment just kind of reminiscing over some tunes on Siamese Dream. And he was like, I'm just going to write a Pumpkins rip. And I was kind of like, all right, man. Like, if it's too blatant, can't be on an album. And then he sends me this tune, demo called Pumpkins as Fuck. And I listened to it and I was like, fuck, that is Smashing Pumpkins. It was fucking wicked. I don't know if we can do that. And I mean, to be honest, yeah, there's a couple of tunes we've done in our past where we've like worn our influences so heavy on the sleeve that I've been worried that it's too close. But what also ends up happening during the Low Lives recording and writing process is like it becomes more Low Lives,
Mhm.
and that tamps down, you know, any egregiousness that may leak through. And I think that happened with Pumpkins as Fuck, which turned into, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this. It was Pumpkins AF. That turned into basically You Don't Care, right? But I mean, in general, like obviously both me and Lee are massively influenced by the 90s. The other lads in the band are too. Jax is actually the youngest. And so I feel like he's retroactively been schooled hard into the 90s, like deeper cuts. He liked all the classic stuff. But yeah, I mean, everything from like Radiohead, man, like Pablo Honey is like a very impactful record on my life. But I mean, even right through to earlier stuff like The Clash and, you know, The Cure. Like I have a very wide music taste. You know, one day I'll be listening to Nirvana, the next day I'll be listening to Madness, and the day after that I'll be listening to straight up drum and bass.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, so I like a lot of stuff. You know, so Lee, you go, mate.
No, it's same. I mean, the influences for this record, it's early Foo Fighters, um, like Alice in Chains, and then up to modern stuff like Super Heaven and Dinosaur Pile-Up and stuff like Basement, stuff like that. And Drumchef.
I totally hear like Teenage Risk kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
And
There's
Teenage
some
Our,
Risk,
he's the
I
best.
love them
our
too.
first our first show was actually with them. Us and them were opening for a UK band called Moose Blood.
Hell yeah,
And
yeah.
then we did Back to the Beach with them too.
Oh yeah, we did as well. So yeah, we
Yeah.
know those guys. We know Anthony and Marshall quite well. Their new record, strangely enough, they borrowed all my amps for it. He put like
Nice.
a thing up on Instagram and he's like, "Does anyone have one of these amps?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've got one. Do you want to come and get it?" So yeah, they're nice guys, man.
Yeah,
It,
so
it,
good.
it some of the ethos of the band comes from like when we were first getting together though, we knew we were both into 90s stuff. We were also into like the resurgence, the grunge resurgence, like into the basements, you know, like we love that stuff, Citizen, you know, all of these bands that have kind of come around right now and like doing a slightly different take on that grunge downer vibe, right? It's a little bit more sad boy than the
Mhm.
kind of old style, right? And one of the things that like stuck out to us from the 90s, right, was this one show that Foo Fighters did at Brixton Academy, right? If you look up Foo Fighters Brixton Academy 95 on YouTube, they play this show, man, and the energy, like I feel like you can feel it through the screen now, even though you weren't there, you know what I mean? And Brixton Academy is a legendary venue in London, right? And it kind of was notorious back in the day. The Clash did a legendary sold out 5 nights, and the venue's probably about like 5,500 capacity. And the Clash did this 5 nights at Brixton, which made it even more legendary. So like most bands want to go for Brixton, and I think this was actually Foo Fighters' first headline show at Brixton. It was sold out, and the energy, man. Like both me and Lee talked about that video. We watched it together, and we were just like, this is it. This is how we need to be live. This is the energy we need to carry. This is like the vibe we need to carry with our songs. Like Pat Smear's in like full like leather, like what? He's got like a leather suit on with like this hat, and he's playing like a bright blue SG. Like you know, Will's still in the band. It's 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 nuts, man. Like that show, the energy, like when he's playing the drums, the whole drum riser's like rocking, like everything looks like it's gonna fall apart. Grohl's blowing his voice out, like he's screaming, like I don't even know how he managed to make a whole show, but that we were just kind of like, we need to be like, we need to do that again. I feel like there's a lack of just like visceral energy coming from bands, right? Like, you know, and we wanted to be like live, let's just be that level of energy. So
Mhm.
that was kind of our North Star, you know?
Yeah. And also just to like keep everything analog. That's also a major thing. Like it's the time now where just every band is cheating, every band has tracks, and it's just like it's fucking boring. You know what I mean? Now, like you get some bands that use it to their advantage, kind of thing, but it gets to the point where I'm just, I just want to see dudes go fucking ape shit on stage with fucking loud amps. Like I want to stand in the crowd and be like melted. Even like last night, going to watch fucking Green Day, dude, it was crazy watching them play Dookie in its entirety, and they were perfect the entire way through. But it was just like real. Do you know what I mean? It was
Wall
just
of sound.
guitar, bass. They even had, the bass that Mike used to use, Billy's Strat they used to use, and it was just like this is like watching Green Day 30 years ago. It's still amazing. It still holds up because it's real, because they didn't do anything that would date them. And I feel like that's the thing right now of everyone using tracks and cheating. Man, in 10 years' time, that shit's going to be gone. Do you know what I mean? It'll be out, like,
I think
it's going to sound dated.
I think there's a way to use tracks live. Like, I don't think all bands cheat. I think like some bands cheat where they'll just like put a ton of stuff on backing track, right? Like we've played with bands that don't even have a bass player and the whole bass is on a backing
Yeah,
track, right?
the fattest
But
bass
like,
player known to
but
man.
yeah, but so there's that element, right? Like, but then there's an element where it's like tasteful tracks. I mean, like you take a band like Radiohead,
Yeah,
like they're probably using tracks on some of their stuff, right? But like it's incredible. And I think like for us, the intention of being an analog band has been like there's a lack of it right now, and it suits. I think as you grow and want to add other elements in, I would always love to think that we were in a position to be able to bring on another band member and support them and like, hey, we've got a guy that is playing like another guitar or multi-instrumentalist doing some other stuff if we ever turn that corner. But right now, I just don't see it. I just see us as like a 16 channel analog band, bass, drums, two guitars, vocals. Let's go.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing, especially like, oh, who's calling me right now? Hang on.
I
I need to.
seen your screen flicker actually.
Yeah, weird. Fuck off. I don't know who that is. But yeah, it's like when you see, like, did you see the Grimes thing at Coachella with
Yeah,
her track
yeah,
dying
yeah.
and stuff? Like that shit's just going to constantly happen because you're relying on technology and stuff. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing, to me, there's still nothing better than standing right at the front watching a band and just being absolutely blasted. And that's the thing, if anything goes wrong, you can still play. Do you know what I mean?
Or enjoying the mistakes. Remember that
Yeah,
London
exactly.
show
Yeah.
that we played, and I went like I don't know what I was thinking. I went to a different part earlier, and the band like kind of looked over the shoulder and laughed and just kind of rolled with it. Like no one in the crowd would have known, but it was funny. And I think I think the humanization of music, right? Like the human element, like it's not perfect, right? Like everything's become perfect, and I think the impurity of humans making music is like really what the beat and soul of music always was, right? And so I kind of love that element. There's times where we played a show in Manchester. We went out on tour with the Used. We played a show in Manchester, and Lee's guitar rig completely died. So he just threw his guitar off, and like our other guitarist was playing the thicker parts now, and he just kind of went into the middle of the crowd with the mic, right? You know what I mean? And what I love about that is like, sure, that might happen again in another song or something else, right? But like that moment was that moment, and it happened then because of like problems, and we made the best of it. And then we did proceeded to smash the whole stage up.
Yeah. Like all rental gear too. It's just like, no, let's just break it.
We just trashed everything. But yeah, it was. I love that. I love that. Like the purity of that. Right. It's like unfiltered and raw and unpredictable. Right. And whatever happens is whatever happens, and that moment will never happen again. Right. You know what I mean?
And
So
that was
I love
similar, like at the Green Day thing last night when they were getting into like they did American Idiot too, and they were doing like the deeper cuts in that record. There's one bit I was kind of close to the side of the stage, and you could see Mike totally just be like freeze, like fuck, which was the part, and he just went to play a note, and then he just turned and was like, that wasn't the right note. But it was quite fun to just see like them all look at each other and still be like, that's funny, just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
whereas I feel like if they're on a track and they make a mistake, they're just totally fucked. So
Yeah. Yeah, I the humanization of music, it's here to stay.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you guys for talking to me. It's been a great, half-hour conversation talking to you about Lowlives. The new Lowlives record comes out May 31st. Gonna be a good one. Really excited to listen to it. Go listen to the singles if you haven't. This is UMFM 101.5, Suburban Home, at home. And thank you again.
Thank you.
Have a great
Take care.
night.